But yesterday, for the first time, you heard Colin Cowherd essentially outright call for Pete's job and say that it's time. Mina Kimes said on her show or on TV a couple days ago that it was something that is now worth being talked about, and if Russell's unhappy, I'll play you some of that sound coming up. But I found myself yesterday really interested in the two quarterbacks that were on this show over the course of the morning. And you know them both pretty well, Brock Huard and Matt Hasselbeck. Two guys with, they've had some similarities in terms of their worldview of life, but also had very different experiences and strengths and weaknesses in the NFL. Matt obviously is a Ring of Honor member. Brock was, and I don't say this flippantly, never really materialized. He will tell you he never fully got to realize his potential, whether it was because of injury or because of the system or because of just his mind. He likes to say he was a blacksmith and at times needed to be an artist. So two guys with some different experience in the NFL and playing the quarterback position, both came back to fairly similar points as it comes to Pete's system, because that's what's being put under scrutiny. Nobody is looking to fire Pete because he's lost the locker room. Nobody is talking about getting rid of Pete because he doesn't understand how to build culture and lead people. The conversation about Pete is down to one person, Russell Wilson. Is Russell happy with the style of offense that Pete wants? That's it. That's the conversation. That's the ball game. Nothing else. It's not about wins and losses. It's not about any of it. There may be folks who are upset about a defense this and a decision there, but the conversation about Pete Carroll essentially comes down to, how do you feel about Russell Wilson? How does Russell feel about Pete Carroll's offense? And so this is what Brock had to say about Pete's philosophy.
You've written all these scripts for all these dynasties. It's very hard to do that. But his philosophy wins games. Does it make stat mongers? Does it make fantasy football stars? I think, Mike, therein is some of the rub. And there is some of the sparks and some of the friction that, sorry, man, we're going to do what we've got to do to win, score one more point. Yeah, but why just score one more point when you could score 30 more points against bad teams? Yeah, this is our philosophy. This is our conviction. This is the way we play, and we're going to win a lot of games. And in his track record, he's won a lot of games.
I think it's really well said. Why score one more point when you can score 30? I can't do it in Brock's voice, but I get what he's saying, right? And I think that there is a call that goes, I don't want to win that way. Why win one way when I could win another way? And I think Brock's answer is essentially saying, because the other way is not guaranteed either. Look at the Chiefs. How's that working out this year? They're winning by 30. Not winning by anything, right? Now, this way is not guaranteed either, obviously, and you've lost Russell Wilson, and that kind of adds more fuel to the fire. But Pete has won a lot of games with this philosophy. What it doesn't do is create stat mongers. It doesn't create fantasy football expertise. It doesn't make Russell Wilson on the same platform as Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees or Tom Brady when it comes to putting up big-time numbers. And so, okay, hold that thought in your back pocket for a moment, and let me play you some Matt Hasselbeck.
So going back to the let Russ cook days early on, I as a former quarterback, when I would watch Seattle play, I'm saying he's cooking. I mean, it's not showing up in his fantasy football stats, but I am very, very impressed with his command at the line of scrimmage and how he is dealing and dishing the ball. Sometimes he's using his arm to throw a little bubble or a now route just to get it out of his hands, saying, hey, there's too many in the box. We're going to make you tackle our wide receiver one-on-one outside. Other times he's handing the ball off, and we've got an explosive run. And that's where you really, as the quarterback, got to be super dialed into exactly what the coaching staff is trying to get accomplished.
Okay, so let's really think about what these two former quarterbacks said. One of them is very close to this. Brock has been following and monitoring this forever. The other is maybe a little bit more separated from this, right? Matt's not paying attention to the Seahawks on a day-to-day basis the same way, but both guys defended Pete's system in their own way. And I would not say that either one of them called Russell Wilson selfish. They did not. No one used that word. But both of them did mention stats versus wins. Both Brock and Matt, independently and without any conversation, mentioned stats versus wins. And it's not a hard leap to get from that to that S word, selfish. It's not that hard. I don't think Russell Wilson is selfish. I don't. I don't think Russ is being selfish, and I don't think he's a selfish player. I do think that he has an ego, And that, by the way, is not necessarily a fault. So does Aaron Rodgers. So does Tom Brady. So does Drew Brees. So does every big-time quarterback. You can't play the position at that elite level without it. So that's not any sort of a knock on Russ. But what I do think he is jealous. I don't think he's selfish. I think he's jealous. I think he's jealous of Tom Brady's numbers and legacy, as he should be. I think he's jealous of what Aaron Rodgers gets to do, where everything is built around him throwing the ball and putting up huge numbers. I think he's jealous of what Drew Brees did, a guy who he has said over and over again he looks up to and admires and tries to model his career after. I understand it. I'm not knocking Russ for it. But I don't think he's being selfish. I think he's jealous. And I think there's a reason that Matt and Brock both point to what Pete's system does versus doesn't do. And it does tend to win games. It doesn't tend to create stat mongers at the quarterback position.